Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by Major General Chip Chapman, former senior British military advisor to US Central Command. He joins us from London. General Chapman, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us. There are these reports, conflicting reports, that negotiations may or may not be on track between the United States and Iran. I don't know what you make of these reports. What is there to negotiate?
Well, I certainly think there'll be negotiations, but it's what's in the basket which will be the crucial thing. So there are potentially 5 aspects to it. Now, I don't think that the Iranians are going to concede on 5 things for a minute. So the first 2 of real interest both to the Americans and the Israelis are the nuclear program, and the second one is the ballistic missile program of the Iranians. Now, just taking those 2, not the other 3, which is the militias supported in the Middle East by Tehran, the human rights situation in Tehran, and anything to do with the IRGC internally and regime change. So staying with the nuclear program and ballistic missile program, I think it is a likelihood that the Iranians might concede something on the nuclear program. Indeed, you could argue that they did many years ago with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, of course, a treaty which Trump withdrew from. But the approach to the nuclear enrichment by the Iranians since has been a kind of a limbo strategy. They're never sure whether they're going to go too high towards a sort of enrichment bomb-making material or too low when it would satisfy the Americans. So I think they would concede on that. What I don't think they would concede on is anything to do with their ballistic missile program. Don't see any compromises on that for the essential reason that that is what they see as their ultimate deterrence against the Israelis and other actions from other Middle East actors. That is their defensive capability. Half of their defensive capability, one could argue, has gone in the last year with the proxies being rather diminished from what they were with Hezbollah and the Houthis and the fall of Assad. So they still need some insurance policy, and I see the ballistic missiles as an insurance policy which they will not concede on.
And how much can they lay down the law themselves? I mean, given that the USS Abraham Lincoln is in the waters not so very far away, considerable US military material has been deployed to the region. I mean, if negotiations are taking place in the context of all of that military hardware being, positioned around the region, I mean, how easy will it be, or how difficult will it be for Iran to start dictating the terms of those discussions?
Well, I don't think they'll dictate the terms at all because, Trump believes in American exceptionalism. But I think we shouldn't get too carried away by the fact that the Abraham Lincoln is there with 6 destroyers around it and 3 littoral combat ships. We also know, for example, that there are other forward deployed elements to Jordan, and I'm sure there's an outload gone to Diego Garcia for heavy bombers. But that does not a campaign meet from the American perspective. So the negotiations or the fact that you've got all that stuff around the theatre is part of the pressure strategy on the Americans to try and get concessions. But that is not a war-winning campaign type of force. And one of the caveats, of course, is that there are a number of myths about war that we need to let go. So said Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff in 2016. And 2 of those are wars will be short, they may not. And the second one is you can win wars from afar just by dropping ordnance. You can't, and there won't be any invasion. So it's uncertain what outcomes the Americans could have. And the supreme objective of the statesman and commander is to absolutely know what sort of war they're embarking upon should they take military action.
Right. Do you think there's a possibility that all of that material could have been deployed? I mean, I know you say there's not enough to sort of carry out a ground invasion, but to then turn around and do nothing. I mean, do you think that's an option for the Trump administration, given that they did something similar on the waters off Venezuela towards the end of last year, and they ended up doing something? We were told by military experts at the time that they couldn't have deployed all of that and turned around and done nothing. Do you think they will therefore have to come back having done something other than negotiate?
The key thing about Trump is he must be able to sell what he would perceive as a victory. And therefore, by caveating the nuclear program of the Iranians, I think he could sell that as a victory. He would have a slight heartache in that because, of course, he said that they destroyed it for forevermore after the June raids. So it is part of a pressure strategy. But the dilemma for Trump is also that all the regional actors around the Gulf are not really bought into the Americans using access basing and overflight rights because of the fact that the Iranian rhetoric has always been that if you hit us, we will get involved in a regional war. And that doesn't just mean the American facilities in the Middle East, it means a wider conflagration. And therefore, there's a break from the diplomatic actors around the Gulf, which also creates an uncertainty for Trump. So this is a real dilemma for him. And so the presence of the American firepower can be seen in a diplomatic sense as what the Americans often call a kabuki dance. It's a stylized form of doing business. What you won't get, as you had in Venezuela, I see no likelihood of a decapitation raid, because that is essentially what happened in Venezuela, because Iran is protected by its geography, its distance, and another sort of maxim of the Americans has always been a ship is a fool to fight a fort. So you're not going to see large American warships going up the Strait of Hormuz, which would make them vulnerable to the coastal defense cruise missiles of the Iranians.
Right, so it sounds like you would caution on those that are drawing any parallels with regards to what happened in Venezuela.
I would caution on that. It's a completely different theatre with completely different geography and with a completely different set of actors. We know, and I've always said this to you, Tom, that the bar for the Iranian regime is very low. It is regime survival. So I do see them probably doing some sort of compromise at some stage. The only caveat on that would be that we do seem to have two things which could come together with the Iranian population clashing with another anniversary. And that is that between February the 1st and 11th, we've got the 10 days of fire, the celebrations of the 47th anniversary of the founding of the Islamic Republic. The end period of that clashes with the 40 days of mourning of those who were slaughtered in the January killings. That could turn large amount of people out on the street. So if the objective of the Americans, and I don't think it's actually been explicitly stated, is regime change, you would need the external actor of the American doing something significant against regime targets, IRGC, and with the population turning out and large sections of the IRGC or Basij defecting towards them. Otherwise, you'll have large-scale killing again by the Iranian regime. And in my opinion, they're still capable of killing tens of thousands of other people in the same way that Assad's father did in Hama in 1982.
OK, well, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Major General Chip Chapman, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Tom.